The following program is brought to you by freedom of speech, constitutionally reinforced, odor-absorbent, lemon-scented freedom of speech since 1787.
KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, the Cary Harrison Files. Crack the code and break the lock. Racing shadows round the clock. We're the ones to find the truth for every soul denied the truth. Yeah, we'll find the truth. The Cary Harrison Files.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome. Glad to have you aboard. We're going to have some fun today. Special live streaming on Instagram and other mobile-related phones in that upright portrait mode. So if you have such a thing, enjoy it that way rather than turning everything sideways. As we do live stream, you can just simply Google us on Substack, YouTube, Instagram, Cary Harrison, C-A-R-Y, and up it comes. Well, what a fun week we have had. That's the laugh of pain, I think. We're now in the era of the 250th anniversary of this country. Let's remember the problem that got us here and not recreate it so that we're stuck here and there back 250 years ago again right now, which we are, right? 250 years ago, give or take a crumpet and whatever a scone actually is, because nobody really knows and the British are lying. We really did fire a king. We really did fire their king. I know you saw Chuck recently, but we really did fire their king, his ancestor. We didn't just fire him. We wrote a document. My ancestors, maybe yours too, wrote a document all about it. A whole fancy document with quill pens and powdered wigs and men who absolutely did not smell great, not even a little bit, not even on their best day, all standing around Philadelphia in July, sweating through their breeches like a wheel of brie left on a radiator, declaring that King George III of England was, in the immortal words of Thomas Jefferson, a tyrant. Now, Jefferson, I'm sure, was sleeping with his enslaved housekeeper while writing about freedom, but that's a whole different episode, and we will do it. Nonetheless, King George III of England was a despot, a crown-wearing, scepter-brandishing, tea-taxing, poo-brained supervillain, so catastrophically, barnstormingly, weapons-grade crummy that we decided we'd rather bleed out barefoot in the snow at Valley Forge eating shoe leather and each other's disappointment than send him another lousy shilling. And now, 67% of American women under 50 just watched King Charles III's speech from the throne of Congress like it was the finale of The Bachelor crossed with the Pope's funeral, crossed with a Hallmark movie, where someone's grandmother turns out to secretly own a castle. When the imperial state crown came out on its little velvet pillow, like the world's most expensive dead guy's jewelry box, people lost their minds. We are a profoundly unserious people, it turns out. Certainly not all of us have ancestors who shed blood fighting for this country's independence, so they may not have the same allergy to a monarchy. But let's do the comparison. Somebody's got to do it. Might as well be this side of the microphone in a deeply unhealthy relationship with history. Let's go back to where it all started, before the Revolutionary War. King George III, and I want you to picture him right now. Really get the image locked in, because this man deserves every ounce of cartoon treatment I could throw at him. King George III was basically what happens when you take a fairly dim, deeply insecure, constitutionally obstinate little flesh pudding and tell him from birth that God Almighty, creator of the universe, he who hung the stars and parted the waters, personally, that God, personally handpicked him, King George III, personally handpicked him specifically, this particular doofus, to run a quarter of the planet. King George III looked like a pink ham squeezed into a wig. He looked like if a bratwurst went to finishing school and learned nothing. He had the strategic instincts of a golden retriever chasing a squirrel into rush hour traffic on the 405. He had the self-awareness of a potted fern, but meaner. He was basically a toddler who'd never been told no by anyone, ever. Not once, not even about the really dumb stuff. And then someone handed the same toddler an empire and said, "Here, go nuts. We'll clean it up later." So George lost the American colonies. He lost his mind in a way that may or may not have involved a hereditary blood disease called porphyria, which you can try to say 3 times fast while you're drunk. Porphyria turned his pee the color of a vintage burgundy, which is the single fanciest and most disgusting sentences I've ever been required to say on public radio. Porphyria, by the way, is also what was considered the disease that Dracula had. Vlad the Impaler, all the Draculas. It's, your gums recede and so your teeth look long like fangs. You can't go into light, which is why when the sunrise comes up and you're a vampire, you catch fire. All kinds of things you're super hypersensitive to, and you love to live in dark, clammy places because you have to, because it's so painful otherwise. That's porphyria, vampire disease, Dracula disease. This guy had it, and it turned his urine purple. So George III, tyrant king of England, went absolutely certifiably howling at the moon, talking to the curtains bonkers. He spent the last decade of his reign, he was blind, he was deaf, he grew a beard like a mall Santa who gave up, and wandered the halls of Windsor Castle in his nightgown, having lengthy animated conversations with people who had been dead for 30 years. And his version of a State of the Union, which we traditionally do today, his big speech to the nation involved someone else literally reading his words because he couldn't be trusted to show up without immediately trying to start a war with someone or a wall or a ghost. His policy agenda was essentially more taxes, fewer rights, the occasional massacre. Could someone please bayonet those friggin' colonists until they knock it off? Also, has anyone seen my other wig? He was the human equivalent of a debt collector who also owns your house, your boat, your church, your dog, and your wife or boyfriend's Sunday dress. Who shows up every single Tuesday, this debt collector, to remind you about all of it at bayonet point while wearing a bejeweled hat that costs more than your village. This is that guy. This is the guy we went to war with. This is the big dumb villain of the whole American origin story. Here we are at that magnificent anniversary, and we've all been confused to think it's time for a new king. We looked at King George III, this pink, porphyria-riddled, ghost-chatting, wee-wee the wrong color nincompoop, and said, you know what? No, thank you. We'll build our own thing. And then, and this is the part that should make you laugh until you cry, and then maybe cry until you laugh. We built a presidency that in certain recent configurations, has made George III look like a mild-mannered librarian with a chamomile tea dependency. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself.
Bing, boom.
Cut to just a short while ago, King Charles III, husband of Camilla and son of Betsy Windsor, who is, and I mean this with genuine thunderstruck, gobsmacked admiration for the sheer theatrical commitment to the bit. A 75-year-old man who waited longer to get a job than anyone, and I mean anyone, in the entire recorded history of waiting for a job, including everyone who ever waited for a callback from a casting director in Burbank. King Charles stands up in Parliament. He's wearing a hat that looks like a chandelier and a disco ball, had a baby, and that baby then got into a terrible accident involving a jeweler and a dead queen's bird collection. He's sitting on a throne made of actual gold. A throne made of actual gold. Not the one that our president has, which is, styrofoam with gold spray paint. His is made of actual gold, King Charles III. He's draped in robes made from the fur of animals that were definitely not consulted. And he proceeds to read a speech that he did not write. Not one word. Not even the punctuation. The prime minister wrote it. Charles just performs it. He is the world's most elaborately upholstered teleprompter. He is the Hallmark Channel king. He's what you'd get if you commissioned a human being to exist specifically as a backdrop for photographs that go on commemorative tea towels. His ears alone have their own zip code. He's got less executive power than the assistant manager of a sunglass hut. His actual real-world governing authority is somewhere between a mall Santa, a notary public, and a cocker spaniel who's been trained to sit very still during photographs. He talks to his plants, not as a bit, for real. This is the heir to the most powerful empire in human history. He's out here in a garden talking to a tomato plant about its feelings. Now, we haven't even looked at a sitting king of England giving a speech in our Congress at the anniversary of us kicking the King of England out of our Congress. And yet we watch him like he's Moses coming down from the mountain with the tablets and also somehow better hair than Moses, though the hats are arguably comparable. Now, here's where it gets so philosophically head-spinning, so historically dizzy-making, so completely and utterly what the F that I need you to sit down. I need you to buckle up if you're driving and texting. I need you to hold on to something sturdy like that tumescing tool in your lap. King George III had actual power, real power, scary power, the kind of power that makes your palms sweat and your liver hurt just thinking about it. He could tax you into poverty. He could conscript your sons. We'd call it a draft. He could literally force you by law to house soldiers in your own living room who would eat your food, and you would listen to them burp at your table and they would smile about it.
Bing, boom.
He could have you arrested. He could have you tried. He could have you hanged for saying the wrong thing at the wrong tavern to the wrong redcoat on the wrong Tuesday. Feels familiar, huh? And we, our revolutionary ancestors, said absolutely not. We said this is an abomination against human dignity, and we will die in the snow before we accept it. We said we hold these truths to be self-evident, and one of those truths is that you, sir, are a pea-brained, purple-peeing, ghost-talking, ham-faced turd in a crown. And we are done. Meanwhile, King Charles III can open Parliament. As he did recently, he cut a ribbon. He cut a ribbon. He can look solemn and wave slowly from a car. He can name a prime minister who already has a majority, who is roughly as impactful as naming a person who just won a race the winner, after they've already crossed the finish line and collected the trophy, given the press conference, and gotten laid in their hotel room.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call us right now.
Chuckles owns more castles than most countries have words for castle. He has so many palaces that some of them just sit there empty, full of priceless furniture and dead people's paintings, waiting for a king who's too busy watercoloring in another palace to come and visit. He is a figurehead. He's a beautiful, well-meaning, biscuit-baking, plant-chatting, environmentally sincere, architecturally opinionated, absolutely harmless, decorative figurehead. He's the spinning thing on the top of a mailbox that tells you which way the wind is blowing. He's the pine-scented car freshener hanging from the rearview mirror of the British state. He smells nice, and he does nothing, and everyone finds him oddly comforting. And we the nation that told his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather to shove his whole monarchy directly up his royal glutes and made it stick with muskets and frostbite and sheer screaming colonial stubbornness, we are now obsessed with Charles. We watched every coronation, every minute of it. Americans who cannot name their own state senators sat down for a 4-hour ceremonial extravaganza involving swords and oil, a chair with a rock under it. Yeah, there's literally a rock under the coronation throne. The Stone of Destiny. And nobody talks about how insane that is. And then a man getting anointed with special perfumed goop behind a screen while a choir sang in Latin. And we were riveted. We watched like our lives depended on it, like there was going to be a quiz. We cried at the hat, the bejeweled hat, the big hat with all the jewels. There are now people walking among us right now who remember exactly where they were when the hat came out, who can describe their emotional experience of a hat in more detail than they can describe their own children's faces. We watched the funeral of his mother. Lord, did we watch that funeral? We watched the coffin travel around Scotland on a train. We watched it lie in state. We watched the queue, which was 12 hours long and went through the streets of London like a snake made entirely of sensible shoes and suppressed British emotion. And Americans watched the queue. We watched the strangers wait in line for 12 hours. Now, we can't get ourselves to vote in under 45 minutes, but we can watch the British stand in line for half a day to walk past a box, and we sob. But going out and voting, which might take 10 minutes even, not going to happen. We watch The Crown on Netflix, and we have opinions, strong ones. We have opinions about Princess Margaret that are more developed, more nuanced, more emotionally invested than our opinions about the people who are right now making decisions about our health care. We name children after these people in The Crown. You know, there's a psychological phenomenon happening here, and I think it's this. We never actually dealt with the trauma of having to invent ourselves from scratch. We kicked out the king, and then we had to sit there with a blank piece of paper going, okay, what do we do now? Who's in charge? Does someone need to be in charge? What if we all take turns? What if we write it down? Okay. What if the guy in charge can only be in charge for 4 years at a time and then has to ask permission to keep going? And it turns out that is exhausting in a way that a gilded monarchy absolutely is not. Constitutional democracy is hard. It requires participation and attention and reading things and paying taxes and knowing who your representative is and calling their office and all sorts of deeply inconvenient adult behaviors. Monarchy's easy to watch. It's got costumes. It's got castles. It's got a storyline. It's got drama. It's got a dog. Several dogs, actually, corgis. Beautiful, round, potato-shaped dogs that the cameras always find at exactly the right emotional moment. By the way, this is the Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com, C-A-R-Y, Harrison.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. There you're going to get a full transcript of this, history in a nutshell, framed in a way that you're not going to get it anywhere else. Plus, you're going to get stuff that we simply cannot do on the radio, thanks to the beautiful Project 2025 FCC chair, who now listens to every molecule, every squeak, every buzz coming through the speakers, plus all kinds of other stuff that we simply cannot include. Live streaming right now on Substack, on YouTube, on Instagram, most particularly. Simply Google Cary Harrison, Substack, YouTube, Instagram, and up it will come, and you can watch this in beautiful Technicolor, including clever B-roll. Ooh, wow. Now, back to where we were. We're going to open up the phone soon because I want to get your sense on our president, King George III, the one we said goodbye to because of his bad behavior, and how one is okay and the other one is not. Or are they both not okay? Or are all three okay? You know, this country, believe it or not, seems to be unconvinced. We didn't reject monarchy in the beginning, did we? Because we hated monarchy? No. We rejected monarchy because we hated the invoice that was sent to us, the billing. Once the bill went away, once taxation without representation became taxation with representation, which turned out to be only maybe 20% less infuriating, we were apparently absolutely fine. Totally cool, completely okay with all the rest of the glittering hootenanny. The crowns, the castles, the ceremony, the robes, the hats, the swords, the ancient rocks under the chairs, the plant conversations, the biscuits. We want all of it. We just want to consume it like content instead of paying for it via import tariffs on Darjeeling tea. Tariffs! You know, only a king can declare tariffs. King George III was a villain, a real one, a necessary one, the perfect God-sent, historically inevitable, purple-peeing argument-ending antagonist that the American story needed. He was exactly pig-headed enough, exactly tin-eared enough, exactly catastrophically miscalculating enough that we had no choice but to become who we are. As I take some coffee. If you ever want to send me a gift, send me a bunch of aluminum Nespresso capsules. I promise I will use every last one of them right to the last drop. Okay, King George III gave us Valley Forge. He gave us the Declaration of Independence. My ancestors are signatories. He gave us the Constitution. My ancestors are signatories. He gave us, King George III gave us us. Ooh, think about that. King George III gave us us. He was a terrible, awful, no good, very badly, bigly badly king. And the single greatest accidental gift ever bestowed upon a nation that didn't ask for it. Now, Charles III, his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson, is a perfectly decent man doing an absolutely preposterous job with admirable grace and genuine environmental conviction, questionable hat architecture, truly spectacular ears, and a documented history of meaningful conversations with root vegetables. He sits on a golden throne and reads a grocery list written by politicians, and the whole world acts like it matters. Maybe it does, a little, in a way that ceremony always matters, in the way that ritual is the glue that holds societies together, even when the ritual is completely, objectively, historically bonkers. He's the kindly, slightly bewildered face of an institution built on roughly 800 years of conquest, plunder, colonial violence, and the theft of every shiny object on 6 continents. Now wearing said stolen shiny objects as a hat, well, call it a crown. And we, the nation that told his ancestor to go pound sand across an actual ocean, cannot look away. Which tells you everything. We didn't want freedom from kings. We wanted the upgraded discount package. Just think, King George III, tyrant, catastrophic dimwit, is the accidental godfather of American democracy. A man whose pee was the wrong color and whose legacy is fireworks, barbecue, and the right to complain about the government without getting visited by ICE. Well, King Charles III, on the other hand, is a constitutional ornament, a biscuit manufacturer, a plant therapist, devoted husband to the woman the tabloids spent 30 years being absolutely horrible to, reader aloud of other people's words in hats that cost more than all of Malibu, the hats, that is, not the words. And Charles III is living proof that if you drain all the actual power out of a monarchy and just leave the hats and the dogs and the castles, Americans will happily pay for the streaming subscription and cry at the opening credits. And then recently, the King of England addresses the Congress on our own anniversary. And while much of it was nice code, he reminded us that when we need the English, just ring the bell and we can come back home. Wow, you are welcome. Go call your senator. They're not wearing a hat nearly as good as Charles's, but they actually affect your life, which puts them one up on the rock under the chair. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files, CaryHarrison.com. Live video streaming on YouTube, Substack, Instagram, everything with a chip and a signal. You can later listen as a podcast across every service. Simply Google the Cary Harrison Files. That's C-A-R-Y. And our newsletter with a transcript of this entire show and stuff we can't say on the radio anymore is at CaryHarrison.com or GoHarrison.com. And our new Harrison text line is at 310-737-TALK. 310-737-TALK, where you can leave both text and voice messages. Coming up, two kings, two tantrums, two men so catastrophically weapons-grade feckless that history didn't just repeat itself, it did it louder in a spray tan with a worse haircut. We're putting King George III, the pink porphyria-riddled purple-peeing ham who lost America, side by side with our president, the bronzer-drenched, tie-elongated, six-times-bankrupt Cheeto, who tried to steal the country back. One of them sent an army when he didn't get his way. The other sent a mob in Viking helmets. We built an entire country, this country, to escape one of these knuckleheads. So what exactly is our excuse for the other one? Well, I've got some thoughts, and I want yours. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Come argue with me. It's the most patriotic thing you'll do today that doesn't require a powdered wig. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Right after this.
This pussy grabs back.
The Cary Harrison Files.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.
I promise. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files, CaryHarrison.com. You can catch us right now live streaming on YouTube, on Substack, on Instagram. Simply Google Cary, C-A-R-Y, Harrison, and there you'll be able to see it. Plus, you can leave your comments on the streaming side, which is awesome, and you'll get a transcript of everything. Our text line is already lighting up. Got a bunch of them already. This one just came in at 310-737-TALK. It says, quote, six-times-bankrupt Cheeto, close quote, something I said earlier. And she says, if it's a she, LOL, I'm stealing that. Please steal everything, repurpose it. That's why we're co-creating this stuff here together. Wild, extemporaneous lunacy. But that's what we're talking about. We're going to open up the phones in just a second. Just to recap, if you missed the first half, History doesn't repeat itself. It just keeps doing the same dumb fart joke louder in church until someone finally cleans it up, and then it waits 5 minutes, history does, and so it does again directly into the collection plate. And we all know it's true. So what we're about to do is hold up two of the most catastrophically dim-witted, galaxy-brained, weapons-grade, feckless men who have other people do their laundry for them. Okay, I admit, I have a lady who helps do my laundry randomly, and she has sheets, okay? But, so am I feckless or am I smart? Well, that's a different show. Anyway, we're going to put them side by side, these two kings, under the cold, unforgiving, fluorescent light of, are you actually kidding me right now? King George III of England and our president. Our president, whose mirror he kisses goodnight and probably tucks in. Two kings, two tantrums. Quick review in case, like I said, you missed the first half of the show. King George III squirted into the world in 1738 as the most privileged baby in the history of babies. And babies, let's remind each other, are already the most self-absorbed creatures on the planet before they've had even 5 minutes to develop a personality. This particular baby got handed an empire before he was old enough to shave correctly and spent the next 60 years proving with a consistency that almost demands a standing ovation that being born rich and powerful doesn't make you smart. It makes you a pink, pig-headed, wig-wearing ham with a crown on top, absolutely convinced that God personally slid him a direct message about the job, a DM. And the man taxing your tea had lavender pea the color of a Cadbury wrapper. Our president arrived in 1946 in Queens, New York, a fine borough that has produced many excellent humans and one truly extraordinary argument for the nurture side of the nature versus nurture debate. His daddy gave him so much money, that he was technically a millionaire before he could legally drink. If this is a fact which keeps escaping its enclosure, and it wanders back into every conversation like a raccoon that found the buffet. He looks like what happens if you asked a child to draw a picture of a rich man, and then the drawing becomes sentient and gets a spray tan. He's the color of a traffic cone that's been left in a parking lot since 1987. His hair, and we're obligated by journalistic principle to discuss the hair. His hair sits on his head like a small, furious animal that gave up trying to escape, but still hasn't made peace with the situation. It is the physical manifestation of a man who has never once accepted that something is plainly obvious to everyone else in the room. George III, the king, was hold on, I'm going to read a comment here, if I can read it. There we go. This is on YouTube, streaming right now. Lizard Charlie falsely told the swamp, this is when King Charles the other day addressed our Congress, the King of England, in our Congress, quote, if it weren't for us, you'd be speaking French now. Swamplanders probably didn't know that the German language lost to English just by a couple of votes. Thank you so much. Awesome. Keep those comments coming in. Where was I? I was talking about our president is a Cheeto in a necktie built for a very insecure giraffe. It's just true. Bing, boom. Both men, both kings, dressed like their outfits were doing the governing. George III heard no about taxation from the colonies, a totally reasonable, legally grounded, precedented no, and sent an army. They're done. Not a negotiating team, not a letter, an army. And Hessian mercenaries, because he outsourced the violence to Germans, which is either entrepreneurial or sociopathic. And honestly, at some point, the distinction really stops mattering. Because the idea that a bunch of Virginia farmers could tell the King of England to go pound his wig was so catastrophically incompatible with his self-image that violence was the only available emotional response. Imagine a leader in which, because of his self-image, violence is the only available emotional response. Is that just the King of England formerly? Our president heard no from 7 million more voters than said yes, and filed 61 lawsuits. 61 lawsuits. And lost 60 of them. A legal batting average so catastrophically bad that if it were a baseball statistic, they'd have burned the jersey. Then he called Georgia's Secretary of State and asked him on a recorded phone call, because the man spent decades on reality television where everything is recorded, and somehow forgot that applies to reality too. To please just find me 11,000 votes. Oh, that would be very naughty in other countries, because that's not how votes work. That's not how any of this works. That's not how numbers work. And then the mob, the actual mob, January 6th, Viking helmets, zip ties, feces on the Capitol walls, on the walls of the United States Capitol building, while he watched it on television and, according to multiple witnesses, thought it was going pretty well, actually. George III, the King of England, lost a colony. Our president tried to steal the same country back. George III was callous about people he threw at his problems. Our president told his mob he loved them, which is a sort of cruelty with better production values, I guess.
Bing, boom.
Now, while you're dialing in and you're coming next, James and others, here's the part that doesn't go down easy, and I'm not going to code it with anything. George III was over there. His tyranny had to cross an ocean to here, and we built a revolution to stop it over there and here. And we wrote down the instructions so it could never, ever happen from the inside, ever. The Constitution is fundamentally a George III prevention document. The founders sat down and said, we know exactly what happens when one man has too much power and too little accountability. We just lived through it. Here are the instructions. Please do not be idiots. And then we elected our president twice. The second time after January 6th, after the documents, after the phone calls, after the feces on the walls, after all of it. And a substantial portion of this country looked at the full picture and said, yes, please. We'd like seconds. I know we're all asking. The Constitution didn't fail. No. The system held barely by its fingernails, with people being chased through hallways inside it. But we failed. The people who were supposed to read the warning label that George III's entire catastrophe was written as. George III was a bad king who accidentally made us great. Our president was a bad president we accidentally made ourselves. Ooh. That's the most important sentence on the Cary Harrison files, and I'm going to let you sit with that one. King George, we're going to jump to the phones in a second. I'm wrapping up my thinking here and having a swig of coffee. You don't swig coffee, you sip coffee. I swig it. King George III, a purple-peeing, empire-fumbling, army-dispatching, weasel fur-wearing, porphyria-riddled, ham-faced international cautionary tale who at least had the dignity of centuries of institutional pageantry propping up his colossal incompetence, and whose greatest contribution to history was being so spectacularly, operatically, magnificently awful that he accidentally inspired the greatest governing document of the modern age. And it's still allowed to be viewed, by the way, in Washington, still, like maybe for another month. Most of the people He did more than most people ever accomplish, even if he did it entirely by being a first-class dimwit. Our president, bronzer-drenched, tie-elongating, six-times-bankrupt, fake university operating, Sharpie-wielding, election-contesting, nuclear code accessing, feces wall inspiring, golf cart riding monument to what happens when a country forgets exactly why it got rid of kings in the first place, whose purple moments come not from a hereditary blood disorder, but from spray tan clogging something. 2 kings, 2 tantrums, 1 species. We built a whole country to escape one of them. What's our excuse for the other? And that's exactly what I want you to weigh in right now. Call me, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Your Harrison text line is also 310-737-TALK. Because here's the thing. If we just had these 2 blokes, as the British say, if we just had them together in a room, what would they talk about? Who's dumber? Who's more dangerous? And most importantly, are we dumber for letting history pull this trick on us twice? 818-985-KPFK, smart people, dumb things, live radio. Let's do this. James, you're on the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much. And I just need to tell you that the radio theater of the mind, while you're doing a wonderful rant, is downright magical. And I also wanted you to repeat your phone number.
Okay. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Don't forget, we also now have the new Harrison text line, because a lot of people are modern. Some people don't want to have their voice on the air for all the reasons we understand. You can text me and I will read your text on the air along with reading stuff that's on the screen. The text line is 310-737-TALK, 310-737-TALK. And we've got the lines open right now. We're going to pause for a second. When we return, we're going to take more calls. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Hang on.
Smells like fish.
Tastes like chocolate.
It's the Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, call now and get free shipping of your new CGM, plus we'll bill your insurance for you.
877-282-8102. That's 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102.
It is the Cary Harrison Files, CaryHarrison.com, Cary. Don't forget to get our newsletter. Important you sign up for that, because you're going to get an entire transcript of this show, plus the calls, plus the entire video side in case you're not able to watch the stream, simply by Googling Cary Harrison YouTube, Cary Harrison Substack, or Instagram, Cary Harrison Instagram, or anything else with a chip and a signal. You'll be able to get the full video there. Plus, I throw in some extra stuff that, like I said, we can't do on the radio anymore. 818-985-KPFK. If the 2 kings were able to get together, King George III and our current kingly president, what would they talk about? Which one is actually worse? Let's go to Stan in East LA. You're on the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And which is worse is obviously the Orange Man, because we're having to live through it. This is horrible. But anyhow, the 3 things I call it out. The first is most people, you're doing history here with the revolution and all, pre-revolution. And one of the things that doesn't come down in history is why the king paid $7 a head for over 25,000 Hessian troops. And the answer is because the English, his subjects, some of the subjects were here. They were family to here. They didn't want to be in that war. They refused. And that's what we should do with Trump. Now, the other thing is there's a piece at Stun, S-T-U-N, PASOIR.com, that is the hidden history of the First Amendment. And people think it came with the Bill of Rights in 1791. No, it began in 1743 with a 20-year-old Harvard theology student. It's brilliant what he did. And then finally, at that same place, Stun says there's a way to, within 6 weeks, be rid of Trump legally, constitutionally. I don't know how.
We've done this call 1,000 times. I appreciate it, Stan, so much. It's 1,000 times saying the same thing again. So thank you, but look forward to your call next time. And I say that on behalf of all the other listeners, of course, because that's my job. That's my moral and ethical job, is not to put you through that stuff. No. Okay, let's go to Elaine from Monrovia. Elaine, you're on the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
You sound awesome.
All right, thanks. Well, I'm surprised what I'm getting on here. I had 2 comments on this segment that you were doing. I think like the overall question that you're asking your audience is, why are we allowing another king basically to come in when the whole idea is that we're trying to get rid of a king? But I want to push back first on your premise that George III really was so terrible. Like, honestly, I don't know that much about him, but I just want to know where how you're basing your argument here. I mean, I don't like the monarchy as an institution myself, but I just stumble like you're arguing that he was particularly bad, and I'm not quite sure that that's true. And then the other piece is that I really think the reason that we're sort of going toward a monarch again is that there was something rotten about the way that we got rid of the monarch to begin with. With something that's really not well known about George III that I found out because I was doing research initially on fracking in Pennsylvania, so don't ask me exactly how I got there. But Pennsylvania, places like Pennsylvania and Louisiana are basically internal colonies of the United States. So when you study them, you start looking at colonialism more broadly. And one of the other arguments that the U.S. had about, the British rule and why they didn't like it, it was because it was colonial. But the thing is that the way that we then managed to get most of the white population on board with getting rid of the monarch is to promise them a piece of land that was belonging to Native Americans. And actually, George III was the one who made an agreement with the Native Americans at the time to protect all the land that was west of the Appalachians. And, George Washington and all our wonderful founding fathers, who also owned slaves, by the way, which I'm sure most of your listeners are aware of, said that's bullshit. You're allowed to take whatever land from Native Americans that you want.
You said a naughty word, so we can't do naughty words. I think Will probably grabbed it. There we go. You're not inaccurate, Elaine. George III is going to side with whoever is going to help him keep his power, which means he's going to work with, on a Thursday was an enemy, Friday they're an ally. George III would have had you killed for saying something he didn't like, and you were property of George III. He could take any boy and conscript him and send him off to die. There was no democracy, no elections, no voting. You were taxed without even being consulted. There were no representatives. You were just told you will pay, you will pay. If you didn't pay, they just came and took your house. He was allowed to move soldiers into your house. So think of all of our amendments. These are anti-George III amendments. They're not giving you rights. They're keeping the government from taking your rights. So they're actually inverted. They're not like lipstick because your lips could use a little pinker color. They're to keep the government from overreaching. And it was such overreach that everyone was dying. He would stop bringing food, just exactly the same behavior that we see many countries do, withholding medicine. We didn't have a Department of Education yet, but if we'd had, he probably would have carved that thing and knocked off a third with his own version of Mr. Musk and taken the cash. And that's what was going on, and it became insufferable. So, but I do appreciate your call, very much so. Let's go next to, let me give out the numbers. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Easy question. If you had King George III, the original tyrant, and I am glued a bit to this emotionally because my ancestors helped write the Declaration of Independence. They also were signatories of the Constitution. I have family Bibles and diaries going back to the 1600s, the 1700s. My family were Quakers mostly, so, kind of like pacifists in their own way with tall black hats. And in looking at these documents, in understanding the history, in seeing what was actually going on, it is so bad. So imagine the current president having ICE on every street corner. That means where you live. Even in the most remote areas, there's somebody from ICE standing there, and they're just going to kick your door down because they feel like it. Come and take your food, steal the silver, send it back to Washington. Maybe your oil paintings, maybe some of your family antiques, some heirlooms. Maybe you needle pointed a nice pillow. They're going to take that because they like it. They want their dog to sleep on it. And then they're going to grab your son, your daughter, and have them go fight something. And they can do it because you are property of the crown. So remember, you're not a citizen. There is no citizen. There is no independence. There is no independent thought. You are on board or you die. It's like Nazi Germany, on board or you're toast. And being property of the crown makes you as valuable as a chair. You have the same rights as a chair. If the chair looks nice to the subjective eyeballs of the king, the chair gets to stay in the room. If the chair doesn't look nice, the chair goes down to the cellar or it gets broken up and burnt for firewood. Simple as that. You have the rights of a chair and you're abused as would be a chair. Anybody can sit in it. They don't have to wipe their fanny. They could do whatever they want. They could take an axe to it. It's not a problem. Interestingly enough, and you can ask some attorneys that deal, believe it or not, with things like PI, but some of them are great historians. I'm not saying anything against PI attorneys, but many of them are great attorneys if they do habitability type law with bad landlords. And they'll understand that the reason that murder is so forbidden in this country, it's bad everywhere, but it is so forbidden in this country, and it's an English hangover. Everyone was property of the king. So if you murdered the king's property, he is now minus one person to be conscripted and go off and fight one of his many wars, seeing as he is the owner of about a third of Earth. And boy, does that take a giant empire and a lot of military and a ton of navy and a lot of people working it who disappear forever, never to be seen again. All heroes, of course. And as property of the crown, you could just be taken. So people will tell you that when you murder in this country, that's why we go nuts. We have death penalties because it's a hangover that you have stolen from the king. Or, as this country, early in its imagination, you've taken away someone's personal sovereignty. And so the ultimate penalty in the beginning, still is today, is death. Because really it's an affront to the king. It's his property. And it's the property of the state. It's the property of this large experiment that we have. So best thing to do is not have it. If you believe in self-determination, if you truly in your heart believe that you have the right to do and be as you wish, then you will never want a king telling you what's right, what's wrong, and to what degree. You won't want an external governing force cutting deals with some people, but not all the people. And in our Constitution, imperfect as it is, there is no such thing as some people. There's only all people. Are all people represented? No. Are all people treated equally? No. Does it say they should be? Yes. Is that a problem of the Constitution? No. That's the problem of the people now in charge who interpret it for their own benefit. But the actual documentation means that a government cannot cut deals with some of the population in order to damage the rest of the population. Not allowed. So we are charged with going back and making sure that we don't have such a dominant governing force that our right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, independence, self-determination is not abnegated or abrogated, which it has been for many. So, hard to say exactly what the right answer is, but I'll tell you what, I will take these documents over any documents of any other country any day. The lesser versions that are practiced in Europe are practiced more soberly. So the lesser value of their documents has bigger output. The quality of life in Europe is unbelievable. You know it. Yeah, it is beautiful because, get this, here's the big rub. Here's the big difference between them and us. Let's take Switzerland, a neutral country since 37. They pay a lot of taxes, but they get something for every Swiss franc, Rappen, whatever, let's call it cent. For every cent they spend, they demand receipts. So if you're going to charge someone in their taxes, there's no such thing as we don't know where it went. Like in America, I have no idea. I paid taxes. I have no idea. I don't care. Where's the Netflix? I want some more chocolate. They don't. They want something for every penny they pay. Sure, they complain about their taxes, but they have an incredibly rich and high quality of life because every penny they spend, they hold their government accountable to return product for it. So if in our taxes, we got beautiful trains, light rail, beautiful streets, landscaping, fresh air, clean water, there'd be a lot less bitching. But unfortunately, we have allowed this monarchy to reemerge, this oligarchy to exist. They don't need these products. They can just purchase it at will, on demand. The rest of us depend on streets to drive on, gas stations that work, street lamps. Yeah, we depend on it. They don't in their gated neighborhoods. So think about that. And we'll talk about that another time because it is such an excellent topic. I want to thank you, Renee Yawarski, our beautiful, fabulous, wonderful director. I want to thank you, Will, at KPFK in the control room. And most importantly, I want to thank you, the listener, the listeners plural, of which who knows. We don't measure radio the way we measure streaming services. We don't have exact metrics, which is great. It's anonymous. Nobody knew you were here. Nobody will ever know you're here. And you can text anonymously at 310-737-TALK. You can do whatever you want here. You have full permission and you have my backing. And I appreciate every second I get to spend with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week at this time. This is the Cary Harrison Files.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call us right now.